Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back into another edition of Keytime Sports. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the Key on millions.co. Here is my media feed. Here is my merchandise. We just rolled out new merchandise last month, and we are going to roll out new merchandise this month. And here is our new logo for all of our merchandise and apparel that we are going to be rolling out for the rest of this year. And here's my profile so that you will know it's me when you go on millions.co. Here is my profile. And here is, well, my first segment of the day is NBA basketball. So last night, I can't say last night, but yesterday afternoon, there was three particular games that I watched just to see how intense it would be. Toronto Raptors and Boston Celtics. Obviously, both of these teams, we had them in we had them like in the same boat at the start of the season, but the Boston Celtics, they are second in the East and the Raptors are seventh. I predicted that the Celtics would be number 7 and the Raptors would be number 4 or 5. But obviously, with throughout the season, things change, and obviously the Celtics have went on a run. So now the Toronto Raptors, their starting five last night, nobody scored over 16 points. As you can see right here, Brandon Ingram 15 points, RJ Barrett 15 points, Scotty Barnes 10 points, Jacob Pelosi 14 points, Jacoby Walter, 16 points. And as far as the bench production, they didn't get many contributions from their bench production. You have Sandro Mashilevi, 10 points. Then you have Jamison Battle, 2 points. Colin Murray Boyles, 12 points. Jamal Sheed, 7 points. And everybody else on the list last night had a big old goose egg. Now, here's the one thing that I'm going to say about the Toronto Raptors. We don't expect the Toronto Raptors to get far in the playoffs. If they play their first round, if they play the first round, I believe either Detroit or Boston will beat them. There is no if about it. They're Raptors, they not going to get past the first round in my book. Jason Tatum, he had 23 points. Sam Hauser, 8 points. Namis Quetta, 18 points. Derek White, 10 points. Jaylen Brown, 26 points. Bench production for the Celtics. Nikola Vucevic, 4 points. Peyton Pritchard, 17 points. He should be the leading sixth man of the year. Ron Harper Jr., big old goose egg for him. Baylor Sherman, 5 points. Jordan Walsh, 4 points. Hugo Gonzalez, big old goose egg for him. So I'm going to let you all look at the current standings, and as you can see, we have the Celtics who are still at the number 2 spot. The Detroit Pistons have clinched the number 1 seed in the East. They will have home court advantage throughout the Eastern Conference Finals. That is, if they are able to win their playoff series leading up to the Eastern Conference Finals. So now we see the Toronto Raptors. They are in the play-in tournament bracket right now. And one thing that I can say about the Boston Celtics, we already know that the Boston Celtics, worst case scenario for the Boston Celtics is they lose in the second round. Best case scenario for the Boston Celtics is NBA Finals champion with their 19th trophy in franchise history. For the Toronto Raptors, it's all about just growing with this group of guys and trying to see what they can do in future years. That's all, but this wouldn't necessarily be a first round matchup that I would say, oh, we got to look at this because this might be an upset. No, no. If the Celtics and Raptors play in the playoffs, the Celtics they would be the overwhelming favorite over the Raptors because I don't see anybody that is on the Raptors that can consistently stop Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And you could see last night on the very first play, Jason Tatum scored. Now, before I get into the highlights, here is the efficiency from last night as far as 3-point shooting. Both teams made the same amount of threes. When it comes to offensive rebounds, when it comes to rebounding period, this is where the Celtics had the advantage. Offensive rebounds +6 for the Celtics. Defensive rebounds +7 for the Celtics. Points in the paint, it was 76 points in the paint for the Celtics and 58 points in the paint for the Raptors. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something. Teams that allow 60-plus points in the paint in NBA history, those teams, they go on to win 89% of the time. And the teams that allow that, they go on to lose the majority of those games. So, I mean, everything last night, the Celtics, for the majority of the game in the second and third quarter, they were just attacking the basket, and the Raptors didn't have no answer for the Celtics constantly attacking the basket. And you can see it right here in the highlights. I'm going to go back to the very first highlight. You all look at this. Jaylen Brown all the way to the basket and not even a good 10 seconds into the game. So now I get to the third quarter. Well, yeah, the third quarter, middle third quarter, and the Boston Celtics were up by 6. They come on down, and the Raptors, they make a three, and it's down to 5. But one thing, when it comes to the fourth quarter, right here, fourth quarter, Toronto, they pretty much made a game of it. The deficit didn't exceed no more than 12. But we all knew that with Peyton Pritchard, and there's Peyton Pritchard, one of his 19 points. We all know when it comes to the Celtics, that you can only keep the Celtics in check for so long. Here is Sam Hauser with 2 of his 8 right there. You can only keep the Celtics in check for so long, and then you have Jason Tatum, Peyton Pritchard again for another basket of his 2 of 19 points. And for Toronto is just a first round exit, as you all can see right here. And then this is where the blowout came. It was pretty much good night Irene right there when they went up by 18 right there with just 2 minutes left. It was good night Irene. And that is where we get the 115-101 final score. The next game I am going to cover is the Charlotte Hornets and the Minnesota Timberwolves. One thing I can say about the Charlotte Hornets, they have surprised me and a whole lot of other people. Because coming into this season, we didn't expect the Charlotte Hornets to do anything. We didn't. But obviously, since shortly before the All-Star break and immediately after the All-Star break, the Charlotte Hornets, they have won 26 of 33 games since the All-Star break. And they pretty much, did a complete 180 when it comes to their season, because before the All-Star break, it seemed like Charlotte, it seemed like they were just going to be one of those teams that have potential, and we would have to look towards next season or the season afterwards in order for them to be in the playoffs. But as of right now, they are in the play-in tournament, and I'm going to say that we only have one more week when it comes to the regular season, because the start of next week is play-in tournament time. So between now and Saturday, between now and Sunday afternoon, 8 more days of the NBA regular season, and then it gets down to the most entertaining time of the NBA. Now, throughout the season, everybody is always saying that, ratings are always down. But when it comes to the NBA playoffs, let me tell you something. Those ratings increase. So NBA, they gonna get their ratings back no matter how it is. No matter how bleak the regular season is, when it comes to playoff NBA basketball, fans like, the average fan and NBA spectators like myself, we will be watching. But back to what I was saying when it comes to the Hornets and the Timberwolves. Now, Hornets, diamond in the rough. We didn't expect them to get this far. And the Timberwolves. Now, the Timberwolves, we see them with so much potential. So much potential. But when it comes to the Timberwolves, they've been to the second round of the playoffs. They've been to the Western Conference Finals back-to-back years previous to this year. And now we are expecting them to at least make it to the Western Conference Finals, if not the NBA Finals. But you can only have a team this good for so long. See, this reminds me of other teams in the past. And I know an obvious team that I'm going to go to is the Oklahoma City Thunder with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Because it was just for multiple years where the Thunder, they would be in the playoffs. They would get to the Western Conference Finals. They would get to the NBA. Well, they got to the NBA Finals one time, but almost year after year, they would be having deep playoff runs, but they could never get back to the NBA Finals, or they could never win the NBA Finals. And I hate to put the Minnesota Timberwolves in that same boat, but 4 years, we've seen this. It seems like we've seen this story for 4 years. Timberwolves during the regular season, they have a winning record, 16, 17 games above 500. They get a first round. They get a first round series win. Get to the second round. They're able to get a win there. Then they get to the Western Conference Finals, and it's like it seems like they just hit a wall, and it seems like they just can't respond. Basically, because like I said, we all know that with the Minnesota Timberwolves, there are quite a few teams that stand in the Timberwolves' way when it comes to getting to the just the Western Conference Finals. I'm not even going to say NBA Finals. You got basically the 5 teams that are in front of them are standing in their way. Oklahoma City Thunder. That's one, and they gonna have to go through Oklahoma City to get to the NBA Finals, no matter what. San Antonio is the second team. Lakers, maybe. Denver, we already know that the Nuggets, they've lost to the Timberwolves multiple times in the past 3 years when it comes to them playing in the playoffs. Houston Rockets, I'm not totally sure about them because we all know that they have problems late game situations and in situations where they need a leader. Rockets, it seems like they don't have a leader. Everybody now, for me, the Rockets de facto leader is Kevin Durant, but some of the times, and Kevin Durant, he said this to the public. Sometimes Kevin Durant has said that he is not confident in some of his teammates' shooting abilities. He said that. Now, now when you say things like that, that has the possibility of putting barriers in a locker room and separating the locker room. Now, hopefully, and I do mean hopefully, none of the players that are in the Rockets locker room, hopefully they haven't been separated. That doesn't bring separation, but it gives you the cause to pause for a little bit when it comes to you got your best player of the team saying that about one of the players that are still in the early stages of their career, don't really know what playoff basketball is all about outside of last year. Because the Rockets team from last year, most of those guys are on the team this year. And I'm going to tell you all something. Last year, the Rockets, once they played the Warriors, I could see where in that series when they had pressure-packed moments, the Rockets, they crumbled like a cookie under pressure. They did. And dare I say, are the Rockets going to crumble under pressure again with Kevin Durant at the helm? We'll just have to wait and see. But for the Minnesota Timberwolves, more than likely they'll be facing the Los Angeles Lakers now. Minnesota, they beat the Lakers last season in the first round. The Lakers, they are an undermanned team. I know that Luka, he's injured right now, and Austin Reeves, he's reportedly out for 4 to 6 weeks. So the Lakers are between a rock and a hard place right now. And basically, I'm going to say the Western Conference teams 3 through 6, they are stuck between a rock and a hard place in some form or fashion. Because I can tell you what the problem is with the Lakers. It's all about defense with them. Defense and efficiency on offense with 2 of your guys out. When it comes to the Denver Nuggets, it's all about offense and trying to be able to outscore your opponent. Because the Nuggets, when it comes to their defense is really not up to par. It's really not. With the Houston Rockets, late game situations and mishaps. That's the problem with the Houston Rockets. With the Minnesota Timberwolves, it's all about, dare I say it, matchups. Because some of these matchups that the Timberwolves have had, one night you see them against a team like, I'm just going to use the Hornets for an example. One night, Timberwolves, you see them against a team like the Hornets last night, you think that they would beat them, but obviously the Hornets, they came out and they pretty much put fuel to the fire when it comes to as far as intensity, tenacity, and aggressiveness when it comes to setting the tone for the game. And what I'm going to tell y'all is the Hornets throughout the second half of the regular season, they have dictated the game. All of these games that the Hornets have won, they've dictated the game. And you can see when it comes to team statistics, you see where the Hornets, they made more threes than the Timberwolves, but that is always not the case when it comes to the leading statistic that goes into the Charlotte Hornets' favor. You see where, when it comes to points in the paint, +6 for the Hornets, 50-44. Then you have blocks, +2 for the Timberwolves. Total turnovers, Timberwolves had 18, Hornets had 15, and the largest lead of this game, 22 for the Charlotte Hornets, and for the Timberwolves, it was 7. So Timberwolves, dare I say, Timberwolves, this may be another season where they do not get to the NBA Finals. And then all of a sudden, the Timberwolves, they are going to have to call Chris Finch, in for questioning about his job security, because it seems like the Timberwolves, they've been right here. They've been right here since 2021. Now, we all know how good the Timberwolves were in 2021. We were expecting them to go up, but they've been right here. And it seems like with the losses to Dallas, with the losses to Oklahoma last year, it seemed like, dare I say, they're starting to go down. But you can only be right here at this point for so long until your foundation starts to drop. And then when it starts to drop, it's going to be impossible to repair it. Well, I'm not going to say it's going to be impossible to repair it, but it is going to be a difficult time in repairing it. And you also have a generational talent in Anthony Edwards that is still trying to do his best to keep the Timberwolves afloat. They right here. They are right here. You have the Spurs, who are right here, and then you have the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are right here. So, only thing that I can say is, when it comes to the Timberwolves, what type of Timberwolves team are we going to see in the playoffs? Here's how it started in the first quarter. Basically, right out the gate, the Hornets, they came out with a different type of intensity, and they pretty much had control of the game. When we get to the middle part of the third quarter, y'all see this? It was still anybody's game in the third quarter. But the Hornets, they went on an efficient, hot shooting streak. There's one of the threes right there that ballooned the lead to 10 for the Hornets. As you can see, coming down the stretch right here, early fourth quarter, up by 12 with the Charlotte Hornets. Here's another missed shot by the Timberwolves. Coming on down the floor, the lead got up to 14. And as you all can see, it was no stopping the Timberwolves. It was no stopping the Timberwolves. It was no stopping the Hornets after this. As you all can see, midway point of the fourth quarter, Hornets still raining threes. Coming on down the floor, look at this. Wide open three for LaMelo Ball, and that's the kind of night it was. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, the Charlotte Hornets are going to be a tough outing for anybody. Now, what I'm going to do is, let's look at these current standings. So, if the playoffs were to start next week, which they do, the Charlotte Hornets would be facing the Detroit Pistons. Now, dare I say it, Charlotte Hornets, they can upset the Detroit Pistons. I'm going to go ahead and say it right here, right now, because I know what I see from Jalen Duren on the Detroit Pistons. Tobias Harris, he's up and down like a roller coaster. And what about the bench production for the Pistons? Now, last season, when it comes to the Pistons, they didn't have to depend on bench production as much, but when you have your best player in Cade Cunningham out for the season, you have to have a backup plan. You do. You have to have a backup plan. And for the Charlotte Hornets, we all see with the Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Con Knueppel, the big three. So can that big three upset the big two of Detroit? That remains to be seen. We only have 8 more days of the NBA regular season. And the last game that I am going to cover is the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. All throughout the entirety of this segment, I have been taking into question about the Rockets' late game situations and their late game schematics too. So, when it comes to the Rockets, as you can see, when it comes to their starters last night, Kevin Durant, 31 points. Jabari Smith Jr., 23 points. Alfred Sengun, 24 points. Amen Thompson, 18 points. Reed Shepard, 11 points. Bench production, Jashawn Tate, Big Ol' Goose Egg, Terry and Eason, 2 points. Clint Capella, Big Ol' Goose Egg, Aaron Holiday, 6 points. And Josh Okogie, 2 points. The Golden State Warriors starters, Draymond Green, 7 points. Guy Santos, 15 points. Kristaps Porzingis, 9 points. DeAnthony Melton, 6 points. Brandon Podziemski, 18 points. Bench production for the Warriors, Charles Bassey, 5 points. Stephen Curry, 29 points. They had Steph Curry coming off the bench last night, and I was surprised by that. I was like, hold on, wait a minute. I'm like, Steph Curry, you got Steph Curry coming off the bench? I'm like, the bench of all places? But I know one thing. Steve Kerr, he did not want to mess up the team morale with the starting five. And Steph Curry, it don't matter what lineup Steph Curry gonna come in. He is going to get his 30 points, and he almost got 30 points last night. So Seth Curry, 6 points. Gary Payton, the second, 14 points. Pat Spencer, 7 points. Will Richard, Big Ol' Goose Egg. Now here's one thing about the Warriors. We all know that the Warriors are a team that is not as strong as they once were when it comes to their championship years like back in the day, but they are still giving themselves a fighting chance. And that's all that you can say, and that's all that you can be happy with a team that is have so many deficiencies like the Warriors. Now, as you all can see, Warriors made more threes than the Rockets last night, but still lost. Total turnovers. Rockets had more turnovers than the Warriors. When it comes to free throws, Warriors made more free throws than the Rockets. Turnovers, I went over turnovers. Rockets had more fast break points. The Rockets had more points in the paint, than the Rockets. Fouls. Warriors had more fouls. The largest lead of this game was 15. And the largest lead for the Warriors was 7. But the final 4 minutes of this game, that is where I want everybody. I'm going to just skip the first 3 quarters and go to the final 4 minutes. As you all can see right here, the Rockets are up by 10. Now, this looks bad on the Rockets because up by 10 under 4 minutes, You basically have an 87% chance of winning this game. But the Warriors, they went on a 9-0 run to make this game. And as you can see, when it comes to Kevin Durant, he makes a three that was badly needed for the Rockets, because if they didn't, here is the Warriors. Gary Payton II makes it. Here is Steph Curry, down by one. Golden State Warriors was down by one with under a minute left. Here is Alfred Sengun with one of the most critical buckets. There is one, a three for Steph Curry. It's good that Steph Curry came back. Here is Alfred Sengun, and that was basically the game winner. We see with Steph Curry, he brings the ball up the floor, 7 seconds. 3, 2, good look. It just didn't go in. So for the Houston Rockets, they hold off the Golden State Warriors. And that's all that you can do, because when Steph Curry, he's very efficient, and you have the team, you have the whole Warriors team, a collective of players. All of a sudden, they're making shots that they don't usually make. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, the Rockets, they may actually lose this. They may. But obviously, they came down the stretch. They needed 2 critical shots. They made those 2 critical shots. They won the game. And one thing that I'm going to say before I give my final analysis for this game is Rockets, they still have problems. They do. The Warriors, first round exit, or maybe even a play-in tournament exit. That's what I see. That's what I see from the Warriors. But all in all 3 of these games were very entertaining, somewhat. And then we get to the current standings for the NBA heading into the last full week of the regular season. As you all can see, you all see a couple of letters by some of these teams' names. I'm going to tell you all what they mean. For the Detroit Pistons, they have a Z by their name. The letter Z stands for they clinch the conference. So all for home court advantage throughout the Eastern Conference, Detroit has it. For the Boston Celtics, they clinched a playoff berth. For the New York Knicks, clinched a playoff berth, and the Cavaliers clinched a playoff berth. For the Western Conference, 3 Ys are by Thunder, Spurs, and the Lakers. They clinched their division. The Denver Nuggets clinched a playoff berth. The Houston Rockets clinched a playoff berth. And for PBs, Clippers clinched a play-in berth. Blazers and Warriors clinched a play-in berth. And for the Eastern Conference, no one has yet clinched a play-in berth. So we pretty much have the Western Conference, with the exception of the Timberwolves and the Suns. We pretty much have the Western Conference playoff picture already set. We just got to look at what the Eastern Conference is going to be. And here is the playoff picture for the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Here's all the playoff matchups. I'm going to give everybody a good 20 seconds to look at this to see if your team is in the mix for the play-in tournament or if they are going to be playing in the first round. And with that, those are my reactions to that is my reaction to yesterday's NBA slate of games that were worth watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Keytime Sports right here on YouTube, Key City Sports on Instagram, and the keyonmillions.co. Here is my profile. Here is my merchandise. We just rolled out new merchandise last month. Here is my new logo. Give y'all a good 10 seconds to see the new logo, part of our rebrand. And here is my media feed so that you can see all of the different segments that I've had. We are talking about the Final Four in March Madness. Also, a little bit later on, I am going to do a segment around tonight's game between the UConn Huskies and Michigan Wolverines. So, one last thing, everybody. Remember, the key is always on time.